Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. I'm a little off today. Today we are doing chapter 25 of The Captain's Heart. Hand me the next board, he told Turek, pulling himself out from within the reactor only enough his hand was outside to receive it. Once he had it, he placed it on his chest, pushed himself back deeper in. For all the advantage the amount of free space gave him to work on the repairs, the downside was that he needed to cross that space each time he needed something. With his design, half his body would be outside while his head was against the core's wall. But, and he was annoyed, this only occurred to him now. With all that space, he could bring all the components and tools in with him and never have to reach out. Next time. This was the last board for this section. If this worked, he'd be 1/8 done, and if they were all the same design, of which he couldn't be sure yet, the work would progress quickly. 3 wells and the test that the heat of the current wouldn't undo them, and 3 hours of repair was done. Was over. It was finished. Hopefully, not to be undone with one activation. Each board had been tested under the expected stresses, but individual tests didn't mean the whole would survive. He put the tool bag on his chest and looked down as he grabbed the first beam to pull himself out. There was a pair of legs on the other side of Turek's. So he adjusted his angle not to kick them. It would probably send the technician screaming to have the almighty engineer touch them. With a pull, he was out to the waist. He grabbed the edge of the panel, looked down, and golden eyes looked at him from the opening. He sat in surprise, then his vision filled with static from the impact with the structural beam, disrupting the image of the box he'd been calling up. He cursed as the back of his head hit the floor on the way down and pushed through that to deal okay, what the hell? Where am I at? Pushed through that to deal with his stomach, which was protesting with pain that overshadowed the rest. Are you all right? I'm fine, Jeremy snapped once he was able to breathe. No thanks to you. He blinked and the static settled into undisrupted sight. What the fuck are you doing in my engineering? He grabbed the side of the panel and angrily pulled himself out. He glared at Growler. I told you that if you want an update, contact Turek. Even before Growler took a step back, hand up in a very human placating gesture, something about the exchange struck Jeremy as off. I'm not here for an update, Growler said, and Jeremy realized what was different. You're speaking English. I learned it. Are all Kelsirian linguists geniuses or something? No, we have counselors. Growler looked at Turek, who shrugged. Jeremy didn't have the time for this. He pulled himself up and wobbled. Don't touch me. He reopened the box and shoved the irrational fear seeing Growler's hand reach for him caused. Once he was steady on his feet, he locked eyes with those golden ones and focused on the annoyance he felt. The justified annoyance to avoid thinking about how bright they were. If you aren't here to check up on me, why are you here exactly? Crossed his arm over his chest. I wanted to see how you were doing and apologize if the situation the ambassador placed you in caused you discomfort. Jeremy frowned. What situation? He stared. Are you talking about him taking me to the cafeteria for lunch? Why would that stress me? I think the techs were the ones put out when Kurek suggested they all come with us. Something about them not belonging there? Jeremy narrowed his eyes at the clearly smile forming on Growler's lip. If he was about to explain the rank thing and you used his name. He rubbed his temple. What did I have to? Oh, right, the rank thing. He is an ambassador, and he asks me to use his name. We aren't that hung up as you all are about rank, okay? He glared, he added, at Growler and Turek's surprised expression, and I figure he gets that about us, since he works with us a lot. And so, no, eating there didn't stress me. And I wish he told me where we were going before we were nearly at the lift, so I could have grabbed forks, but not plural, singular, so I could grab a fork. But I manage. Do you guys really only eat with your fingers? Or did they just do that to make me feel better? Growler presented a hand and claws extended from the fingers. 3 fingers plus a thumb. Jeremy swallowed at how much of them there were. If he were to rake him with those, how easily could he cut to the bone? We use our claws. Into the box the fear went. Growler wasn't an animal. Those were no more dangerous to Jeremy than a cutter in the hand of a welding tech was. What do you do with jellies or puddings? We slurp? Carlo asked with a chuckle, then mimicked the motion of dipping a bowl into his mouth. Okay. Jeremy wondered if his embarrassment belonged in the box and decided against it. He knew why he felt it and deserved it. That was a dumb question. No, it wasn't. You know nothing about my people. It's normal to have questions. The smile was definitely human. If Jeremy ignored it was on a muzzle or that the stretching of the lips caused a point of teeth to poke out. Like the claws, he suspected they looked dangerous. If you ever have them, ask me. I will answer. I am not there. If I am not there, I am certain Queric will. Okay, there is more to that than you're saying. Jeremy motioned to Turek, who looked astonished. Even he's catching on to that. It's a Kelsirian thing. Yeah, and somehow you're bringing me into it. Jeremy hoped the suspicion carried. It isn't me who brought you in. Right, I guess I need to have a talk with Queric then. That isn't who. Turek closed his muzzle at the shake of Growler's head. Then he spoke in their language. The tone sounded casual, but Jeremy wondered what it was about. When Growler looked at him again, he smiled. I will leave you to your work, engineer. Thank you for the time. He turned and left Jeremy. He turned and left. He turned and left. You know what? I'm going to end that. Jeremy watched him walk, absent-mindedly shoving the oozing mass in the box and closing it. Found he was smiling, and he had no idea why. Turek was watching him attentively. What? The Kelsirian nodded toward the archway Growler had left through. Yes, he left. That means we can get back to work. Turek looked like he wanted to say something. When he didn't, Jeremy turned to the board and set about adjusting the levels for the tests. He couldn't get the sight out of Growler walking away. That back, those golden eyes. He activated the test and only then realized Turek was calling his name. Before he could ask why, the control panel erupted with sparks and smoke before shutting down. How? I set everything. He stared at the levels he'd set. The way they were, he was lucky he hadn't melted the control panel. He looked at the archway. His fault. Growler was responsible for that. He shoved the ooze into the box angrily. You can go, Turek said. What? No, I can't just leave you with this. The Kelsirian's expression, when Jeremy looked at him, made it clear that wasn't what he meant, but Jeremy had no idea what else it could be. Come on, we need to clean the damage so we can set new boards in tomorrow and properly test them. And hopefully, Growler would know. Oh, okay. And hopefully Growler would know to come distract him, to not come distract him. Not today, Jeremy told Omar, who timed his arrival to match his to his quarters door. Omar had to have something that told him when he wanted to be alone because, without fault, His friend showed up to talk him into hanging out, and while he often appreciated it, you offered. Okay, there's. So there wasn't one of them. You offered to get a drink the other day. Ask me tomorrow, Omar. I had a test pretty much blow up on me because I screwed up, and spend the whole afternoon cleaning up the damage. Are you okay? I'm tired. Like I said, it's been a long day. I just want to shower, eat, maybe try to do some cleaning, then just crash. And print the new boards. He had to print those. You're sure that's all it is? Yeah. He didn't mention Growler's part in his distraction. He didn't feel like dealing with Omar's insecurity right now. Okay, so tomorrow, a drink? I'll be there. Need to keep that in mind. Then he was alone in his room. He dropped the tool bag and got out of his clothing on the way to the shower. He felt better once he'd cleaned the day off him, and better still once he'd had food. He looked through the options while eating, looking for something he could use as a substitute for the rolled meat and sauce. He had an idea for tools he could design that would let him eat like a Kelsirian if he happened to eat with them again, and he'd need to test them. With food in him, Jeremy braved the mess that was his room. He made it through moving the prototypes to one corner to clear the seats, then dumping half his dirty clothing in the automated cleaner before needing a break. He took that through continuing to work on opening the puzzle box. Faster than he expected, the cover slipped off while he was turning the box, looking for the next slot to move. He hurried to write it before the contents spilled out, then looked in. Paper, he chuckled as he took the top piece. He felt the feel of it and smell reminded him of home, his room, a large sketchbook on his bed, him drawing on it. He turned it and he turned it and looked at his parents' house. The work wasn't as technical as he was used to doing, and the drawing wasn't limited to the house. The yard was there with the flower bed, the old oak towering over everything in the field. There were people in the distance. It all looked like someone skilled had drawn it, and he couldn't remember doing it. Was this someone else's drawing? He didn't remember any of his siblings. He didn't remember any of his siblings picking up drawing. Marco had played with paint, but that had only lasted a year. And the house looked like his work, a less practical version of the architectural drawing he'd done back when architecture had been a serious consideration. He took the one below that, and there was nothing architectural about the drawings. A dog running after a ball, two cats play fighting. How did he know they were play fighting? An orangutan swinging on a branch. Comparing it to the previous one, they were clearly made by the same artist. But again, he had no memory of drawing them. He chuckled as he pulled another page. A spaceship battle, quite rough, and none of the ships looked feasible. Maybe he hadn't had models for this, and he looked to have had quite the imagination, which made sense. He was creative. He wouldn't have succeeded as an engineer otherwise. He paused on the charcoal drawing of his mother, in a rocking chair holding a baby in her arms. Marco. He must have drawn that from one of the pictures because the skill shown wasn't that of a 12-year-old. There was a refinement to the stroke that told of dedication. How the fuck could he remember that level of practice? He flipped through pages quickly, looking for one that triggered something. After a few more, he thought he remembered the sketchbook. The cover had been red and white, with lines and a pencil in the process of tracing one. But was he just remembering one he'd seen in a catalog? He couldn't tell. Then he stared at the drawing of a Kelsirian. He swallowed and put the ooze in the box. It was good. He recognized his pencil stroke in the straight lines of the jacket. The muzzle was short, the ears rounded, and he was overdressed. The jacket was over a shirt, the pants clung to the leg. Maybe they, no he, more ooze in the box, wasn't a uniform. There was a sense he stood at attention. A documentary he'd used used as a reference. In his teens, at least, there was years of serious practice behind the details in the drawing. The next page had smaller drawings, different Kelsirians in variety of action, in various actions. In various actions. Short, taller, small muzzles, larger one. One even had a mane. He found a few drawings of other species, a Tahornian with their scaly skin and lizard-like head, and an insect. An insect one you couldn't recall the name of, and a Garan. If Kelsirians looked like earth cats, the Garan tended towards the dog, with maybe some bear in them, making them more massive. However it was, he didn't remember. His younger self had developed an interest in the species of the Federation. The next page had him swallow bile before he could visualize the box and put the mountain of ooze it had created. In it. Forcefully controlling his reaction. 3 drawings of male Kelsirians, and there was no doubt they were male. He'd drawn them naked. One even sported an erection. Where the fuck had he gotten his hand on nude images of Kelsirian? Those weren't reference images you might expect in a science journal. They were in motion. The erect one was in the process of jerking off. That those kind of images were out there, Jeremy knew. Filmmaking programs weren't expensive, and neither were actor packs. Officially distributed movies needed to be submitted to some sort of board, but that wouldn't stop anyone from just throwing their stuff out there, no matter how perverted it was. What baffled him was that his parents were careful about access. He clearly remembered the talk with his father when he was 16, maybe 17, regarding being granted access to adult material. He'd had no interest in it, but he clearly remembered the warning about the inappropriate things people made available, so he should only get the properly rated movies. There was no way he'd have been able to get access to the stuff he'd drawn. He readied the box before taking the next page out. The way they'd gone, he'd need it. He took in the naked man on all 4, the naked Kelsirian bent over him, and Jeremy barely made it to the toilet before throwing up. He couldn't have seen that. He tried to summon the box, but it wouldn't come. He rushed to the bottle and swallowed a pill, having to fight the urge to swallow more to stop the pain. That couldn't have been a teenaged version of him being fucked by a male Kelsirian. And that concludes chapter 25 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it is up on Ream Story. If you want to listen to them live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. Links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.